Hi everyone, it's Refresh, and I am here to bring you a battle between the Hour of Devastation sealed decks that I have here from Selesnya and Gruul against the Born of the Gods Battle of the Horde challenge deck, which I have here. We are going to be playing in normal difficulty first with 3 turns before the Horde starts attacking, and we'll be using 3 hero cards. We'll be using the Harvester, which lets you draw a card and then discard a card each turn. The Explorer, which lets you play an additional land on each turn. And the Vanquisher, which starts your hand size by +1 and makes your maximum hand size +1. So we'll be starting with 8 cards apiece. So let's go ahead and draw and see what we have. Selesnya has a whole bunch of lands and 1 solitary camel. I think with the Harvester online, I think this is still just fine. So let's go ahead and keep this. Gruul has 3 lands and a bunch of spells that can be played, and I think this is also worth trying as well. So let's go ahead and keep this. Turn 1, Selesnya will play a plains and a forest, and then we'll pass turn. Gruul will play a forest and a mountain, and then play a Burning Fist Minotaur. At the end of their turn, they're going to use the Harvester to draw and discard. Selesnya will draw an Evolving Wild. Gruul will draw a forest, and then Selesnya will go ahead and discard the Compulsory Rest, which is very bad against this particular deck. And then Gruul will discard the Hyena Pack because we do not have 2 mountains and don't know when we'll get there. Alright, we'll untap for turn 2. Draw. Selesnya draws a forest. Gruul draws a Ronas Stalwart. Selesnya will play a forest and an Evolving Wild, tapping and sacrificing the Evolving Wild to get a plains. Tap onto the battlefield. And then Selesnya will tap the rest of the mana and play a solitary camel. And then we'll go to Gruul. Gruul will play both forests. And then Gruul will go on the attack with the Burning Fist Minotaur to do 2 damage to the Horde deck. The Horde loses Mogus is Chosen and Minotaur Goreseeker. And then Gruul will follow up by playing the Pouncing Cheetah, and then we will end the turn. Before the end of the turn, we'll go ahead and loot once again with the Harvester. Selesnya will draw a Plains, and Gruul will draw a Desert of the Fervent. We will discard Ronas's Stalwart for Gruul, and we will discard the Survivor's Encampment for Selesnya. This turns on Lifelink for the Solitary Camel, and then we will untap for our final turn before the Horde charges in. We'll draw. Selesnya draws another Plains. Gruul draws another Desert of the Fervent. Selesnya will play a Plains and a Forest, and then Gruul will play both Deserts of the Fervent. And then Selesnya and Gruul will attack with the Solitary Camel and the Pouncing Cheetah to do 6 damage and gain 3 life. Going to 23. 6 damage mills 6 cards. That is a Minotaur Goreseeker, a Phobos Reaver, another Minotaur Goreseeker, Intervention of Kronos, another Phobos Reaver, and the Vitality Salve. When the Vitality Salve is put into a graveyard from anywhere, each player returns a creature card from his or her graveyard to the battlefield, which means that Gruul will put the Hyena Pack from the graveyard into the battlefield. And then on the second main phase, the players will do nothing, and we will pass turn to the Horde. The Horde will play 3 cards, first casting a Reckless Minotaur, which has haste, attacks each turn if able, and will be destroyed at the end of the Minotaur's turn. We'll cast the Refreshing Elixir, which at the beginning of the Horde's pre-combat main phase reveal an additional card from the top of the Horde's library. The Horde casts that card. And we'll cast a Minotaur Younghorn, which is a 2/2 with haste. The Younghorn and the Reckless Minotaur will both attack. The Hour of Devastation sealed decks will not block the Reckless Minotaur, but the Burning Fist Minotaur will first strike block the Minotaur Younghorn, and the Minotaur Younghorn will die. We will take 4 damage to go to 19 health from the Reckless Minotaur. The Reckless Minotaur will then die at the end of the turn. At the end of the turn, the Hour of Devastation sealed decks will loot Selesnya draws another solitary camel. Gruul draws a mountain. Selesnya will discard a plains. Gruul will discard the Bitterbow Sharpshooters. As nice as it is, I think the Sifter Worm is better since we'll be able to cast it next turn. Then we will untap. We'll draw. Selesnya draws another plains. Gruul draws another forest. And then Selesnya will play the forest and the plains. Gruul will play the mountain and the forest. And then Selesnya will attack with the solitary camel. Gruul will attack with the pouncing cheetah, the burning fist minotaur, and the hyena pack to do 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 damage and gain 3 life. The Minotaur Horde loses a Minotaur Younghorn, a Touch of the Horn God, a Minotaur Younghorn, an Unquenchable Fury, a Minotaur Younghorn, a Minotaur Goreseeker, a Minotaur Younghorn, a Consuming Rage, a Plundered Statue, and a Massacre Totem. When Plundered Statue is put into a graveyard from anywhere, each player draws a card. Selesnya will draw a Dusk to Dawn. Gruul will draw a Forest. And then Massacre Totem, when Massacre Totem is put into the graveyard from anywhere, put the top 7 cards of the Horde's library into its graveyard. So we will mill 7 more cards. That is a Reckless Minotaur, a Minotaur Goreseeker, an Unquenchable Fury, a Minotaur Phobos Reaver, an Altar of Mogus, a Minotaur Younghorn, and a Phobos Reaver. When Altar of Mogus is put into a graveyard from anywhere, the Horde sacrifices 2 Minotaurs. There are no Minotaurs to sacrifice, so that is that. And we'll gain 3 life to go back up to 22. Second main phase, Selesnya will cast the Greater Sandworm, and Gruul will cast the Sifter Worm. When the Sifter Worm enters the battlefield, Gruul will scry 3. We have Ronus' Monument, a Frilled Sandwalla, and a Forest. We'll keep the Ronus' Monument and we'll put the other 2 at the bottom of the deck. And then we'll reveal the top card and gain life equal to Ronus' Monument's converted mana cost, which is 3. So that will take the team up to 25 health. And then we will give the turn to the Horde. The Horde are now going to play 4 cards, starting with a Touch of the Horn God. Whenever a Minotaur attacks this turn, it gains Death Touch until end of turn. A Phobos Reaver, a Minotaur Goreseeker, and a Minotaur Younghorn. Now all of these have Death Touch, and so I don't think there's any point in blocking them, especially since we have a nice health cushion. So they're all going to attack, and we will take a collective 5, 6, 7 damage to go down to 18. And then at the end of the turn, we will loot once again with the Harvester. Selesnya draws a Rampaging Hippo. Gruul draws a Ronus' Monument, no surprise there. Selesnya will discard the Dusk. Gruul will discard the Forest, and then we will untap. Then we will draw. Selesnya will draw a Sandblast. Gruul will draw a Scaled Behemoth. And the Solitary Camel should have also untapped. Okay, now that everybody has drawn, let's go ahead and punch as hard as we can. We will start by attacking with the Greater Sandworm, the Solitary Camel, the Sifter Worm, the Pouncing Cheetah, the Burning Fist Minotaur, and the Hyena Pack. That is 10, 20, 25 damage with 3 points of life gain. The Horde loses Minotaur Younghorn, Minotaur Younghorn, Minotaur Younghorn, Minotaur Younghorn, Minotaur Younghorn. Refreshing Elixir, when it is put into the graveyard from anywhere, each player gains 5 life. That's 2 players gaining 5 life. That'll take them to 38. Intervention of Kronos, Reckless Minotaur, Mogus is chosen, Phobos Reaver, that's 10. Descend on the Prey, Consuming Rage, Phobos Reaver, Minotaur Younghorn, and Phobos Reaver, that's 15. That's Mogus is chosen, Plundered Statue, each player will draw a card. We have a Soundwriter Naga for Selesnya and a Mountain for Gruul. Descend on the Prey, Mogus chosen, and Phobos Reaver, that's 25. That's 20. And then we have 5 more, a Minotaur Younghorn, a Minotaur Younghorn, a Reckless Minotaur, a Minotaur Goreseeker, and a Minotaur Goreseeker. All these are discarded. And then we will go to the second main phase. In the second main phase, Selesnya will play a solitary camel and a Sidewinder Naga. We will also gain 3 life from the first solitary camel's attack, taking this to 31 health. The Gruul will go ahead and play the mountain. We'll play Roness's Monument. And then with the remaining mana, play the Scaled Behemoth, giving +2/+2 to Pouncing Cheetah. I think we might have been able to win if I didn't do that. But there we go. And then we will pass turn to the Horde. The Horde will untap. The Horde will draw and play the next 4 cards. We have a Minotaur Goreseeker, a Minotaur Goreseeker, and a Phobos Reaver. We'll be attacked by all 6 of these. The Scaled Behemoth will block the Minotaur Goreseeker. The Sidewinder Naga will block a Minotaur Goreseeker. The Solitary Camel will block a Phobos Reaver, and we will take 2, 5, 6, 7 damage, gaining 3 life back, so net 4 damage, down to 27. The Solitary Camel and the Phobos Reaver will trade. The Sidewinder Naga and the Minotaur Goreseeker will trade. The Scaled Behemoth will just straight up eat the Minotaur Goreseeker, and we are left with 3 tapped Minotaurs. And we'll pass turn back to the team. The team will untap, and we'll draw. Selesnya draws a Rampaging Hippo. Gruul draws a Rampaging Hippo. Let's just go ahead and cast some Rampaging Hippos. There's 1 Rampaging Hippo, 2 Rampaging Hippos. There is no point in attacking anymore since the Horde have already been decked. We're just going to wait for them to attack, and we should win. We'll pass the turn back to the Horde. The Horde will untap. The Horde will cast the next 4 cards. There are no 4 cards to cast. The Minotaur Younghorn, the Minotaur Goreseeker, and the Phobos Reaver will attack to be eaten by the Greater Sandworm, the Sifter Worm, and the Scaled Behemoth. And the 2 Hours of Devastation decks win the day for their first game. I'll be back with the second game against a more challenging Horde. And we are back for game 2. Now we're going to be playing against a difficult Battle of the Horde deck with only 2 turns before they get their first attack. We will be using the same hero cards and start with 8 cards apiece. Selesnya will draw 8. Let's take a look at what we have. We have Rampaging Hippo, Bitterbow Sharpshooter, Sandblast, Forest, Plains, Rampaging Hippo, and Steadfast Sentinel. I think this is probably good enough to get started, so we'll go ahead and keep this. Gruul has Defiant Kenra, Mountain, Forest, Field Prowler, Forest, Pouncing Cheetah, Filled Sandwalla, and Roness's Stalwart. I think this is also good enough to get started. We're going to have to loot a little to get into the right creatures. Gruul is very high on low drops, whereas Selesnya is very high on high drops. Turn 1, Selesnya will play a Plains and a Forest, and will pass turn. Turn 1 for Gruul, they will play a Mountains and a Forest, and will play the Defiant Kenra. And then we will end the turn, looting once. Selesnya will draw a Forest, Gruul will draw a Forest, and then we will discard the Frilled Sandwalla. Selesnya will discard the Steadfast Sentinel, and then we will untap. Selesnya will draw a Plains, Gruul will draw a Forest. Selesnya will play another Plains and another Forest, but has no plays, so they will pass turn. Gruul will play both Forests, and then will play both the Feral Prowler and Roness's Stalwart. And then we'll attack with the Defiant Kenra to do 2 damage, and mill 2 cards to the Horde, which will be a Reckless Minotaur and the Vitality Salve. When a Vitality Salve is put into a graveyard from anywhere, each player returns a creature card from his or her graveyard to the battlefield. In this case, there is a Frilled Sandwalla and a Steadfast Sentinel returning to the battlefield. Now that 2 turns are over, we will hand the game off to the Horde, and they will cast 3 cards off the top of their deck. The first card is Mogis Chosen, which enters the battlefield tapped. Reckless Minotaur, which is a 4/1 that will self-destruct at the end of the turn. A Phobos Reaver, which is a 2/3, and the Phobos Reaver and the Reckless Minotaur will attack for 4, and 2. The Feral Prowler and the Steadfast Sentinel will block the Phobos Reaver together, and we will take 4 damage from the Reckless Minotaur to go to 16. The pair of these will kill the Phobos Reaver, but will survive, and the Reckless Minotaur will die at the end of the turn. And then at the end of the turn, we will loot once again. Selesnya draws a Plains, Gruul draws a Forest, and will discard that Forest. Selesnya will discard Sandblast. Alright, we will untap. Draw. Selesnya gets a Desert's Hold. Gruul gets a Desert of the Fervent. We'll go ahead and play both Plains for Selesnya. And Gruul will play the Desert of the Fervent tapped and a Forest. We'll go ahead and go on the attack, attacking with Ronus' Stalwart, Defiant Kenra, Steadfast Sentinel, and the Feral Prowler for 2, 4, 5, 6, 7 damage. That is 1 Minotaur Younghorn, a Phobos Reaver, a Refreshing Elixir, gaining the team 10 life to go to 26. A Mogus is chosen, a Reckless Minotaur, a Minotaur Younghorn, and a Phobos Reaver. For the second main phase, Selesnya will play a Rampaging Hippo. And Gruul will not play anything. The Horde will untap, the Mogus is chosen, will draw and play a Phobos Reaver, a Mogus is chosen, tapped, and a Minotaur Goreseeker will attack with the Goreseeker, the Reaver, and Mogus is chosen. The Hippo will eat the chosen, the Frilled Sandwalla will get in front of the Phobos Reaver, and will get pumped by Gruul, making it a 3-3. And then we'll go ahead and take the 3 hit from the Minotaur Goreseeker to go down to 23. The Phobos Reaver and the Mogus Chosen die. Everybody else survives. At the end of the turn, Gruul will go ahead and flash in their Pouncing Cheetah, and then we will pass the turn, untap, draw. Selesnya draws a Ramanap Hydra. Gruul draws a Mountain. We'll go ahead and play the Mountain, and then we will attack with the Pouncing Cheetah, Defiant Kenra, Ronus' Stalwart, Steadfast Sentinel, and the Rampaging Hippo for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 damage. That is 1 Unquenchable Fury, 1 Unquenchable Fury, 1 Minotaur Younghorn, 1 Minotaur Younghorn, 1 Consuming Rage, 1 Phobos Reaver, 1 Intervention of Karanos, 1 Minotaur Younghorn, 1 Descend Upon the Prey, 1 Minotaur Goreseeker, a Minotaur Younghorn, and a Phobos Reaver. On the second main phase, Selesnya will cast another Rampaging Hippo. Gruul has nothing else that they can cast, so they'll just hold that mana to pump the Frilled Sandwalla. We will pass the turn to the Horde. The Horde will untap Mogus is chosen, and Minotaur Goreseeker, and will cast the top 3 cards, the first being a Plundered Statue. For the next pre-combat main phase, they will play an additional card from the top of the Horde's library, the Minotaur Goreseeker, and the Phobos Reaver. It's now the pre-combat main phase. We'll cast another card, which is a Consuming Rage. Whenever a Minotaur attacks this turn, it gets +2/+0 till end of turn, and then destroy the creature at end of combat. Alright, so the Mogus is chosen is a 7/4 until end of turn. It will be destroyed. The Minotaur Goreseeker is a 5/2, and another 5/2, and then a Phobos Reaver is a 4/3. We'll just block one of the Minotaur Goreseekers with the Rampaging Hippo, and we'll just go ahead and take all the rest of the damage. So that is 5 plus 4 is 9, plus 7 is 16 damage, and we will go down to 7 life. The Horde will lose 1 Minotaur Goreseeker, and then we'll pass turn. We'll untap, and we'll draw. Selesnya draws a Plains, Gruul draws a Minotaur Sure Shot. And now Selesnya will play a Plains, and will attack with the Steadfast Sentinel, while Gruul will attack with the Pouncing Cheetah, the Defiant Kenra, and Ronus' Stalwart. That is 2, 5, 9 damage. And the Horde will lose Mogis' Chosen, Minotaur Younghorn, Minotaur Younghorn, Minotaur Goreseeker, Intervention of Karanos, Minotaur Younghorn, Altar of Mogis, Minotaur Younghorn, and Minotaur Goreseeker. When Altar of Mogis is put into a graveyard from anywhere, the Horde sacrifices 2 creatures. We'll go ahead and sacrifice the Goreseeker and Mogis' Chosen. On the second main phase, Selesnya will cast Bitterbow Sharpshooters, and Gruul will cast the Minotaur Sure Shot. And then we will pass the turn to the Horde. The Horde will untap their Phobos Reaper and will cast 3 spells. We have another Plundered Statue, a Minotaur Younghorn, and a Minotaur Goreseeker. The 2 Plundered Statues will not trigger, and they'll cast 2 more spells, which is a Touch of the Horned God. Whenever a Minotaur attacks this turn, it gains Death Touch until end of turn, and a Minotaur Younghorn. Alright, all the Minotaurs are attacking. They all have Death Touch. We have a 2-3, a 2-3, a 3-2, and a 2-2. We'll go ahead and block the 3-2 with a Steadfast Sentinel. The Filled Sandwalla will block the Phobos Reaper, getting pumped to become a 3-3. And we'll go ahead and take 2 more damage, or 4 more damage, taking us to 3. The Goreseeker and the Steadfast Sentinel will trade. The Phobos Reaper and the Filled Sandwalla will trade. And then we will pass the turn back to the sealed decks. They will untap. They will draw. Selesnya gets a Fanbearer. Gruul gets a Dagger of the Worthy. Selesnya will cast the Ramunap Hydra and the Fanbearer. Gruul will cast and equip the Dagger of the Worthy onto the Defiant Kenra, and then we will attack with the Bitterbow Sharpshooters, the Pouncing Cheetah, the Defiant Kenra, and Ronas's Stalwart for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 damage, which will get us Minotaur Goreseeker, Minotaur Younghorn, a Phobos Reaver, Minotaur Goreseeker, Phobos Reaver, Minotaur Goreseeker, Phobos Reaver, a Massacre Totem, a Descent on the Prey, a Touch of the Horned God, a Minotaur Younghorn, a Reckless Minotaur, and a Minotaur Younghorn. The Massacre Totem says, when Massacre Totem is put into a graveyard from anywhere, put the top 7 cards of the Horde's library into its graveyard. There are only 2 more cards left. That is a Minotaur Goreseeker and a Refreshing Elixir. Refreshing Elixir will gain the Hour of Devastation team 10 more life to go back up to 13. And then the Hour of Devastation decks will pass turn. The Horde will untap, will cast the top 3 cards. There are no cards left, so the Plunder Statues will also have no effect. The 2 Younghorns will attack, smashing into the 2 Rampaging Hippos, and will perish, leaving the Hour of Devastation decks the win. So that's 2 wins in a row for Hour of Devastation. Congrats to them. Let me know what you thought of the games. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button. If you'd like to see more such videos, hit subscribe. Next up, we'll have the 2 Hour of Devastation sealed decks versus the Defeat a God challenge deck from Journey into Nyx. But until then, this was Refresh. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.